disciples too. So he put them all out. You got to get rid of fear. In whatever form it manifests itself, you got to get rid of it.
Yep, absolutely.
Sadly to say, there might be some people, might be some close people, but if they're full of fear and they're not with you, you got to put them out. He took the child and his father, his mother, and his disciples with him and went in where the child was. He took the child and he said the words, right? Little girl, I say to you, get up. And immediately she stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. So, how did the little girl get healed?
The faith.
Faith of who? Her daddy.
Her daddy, yeah.
Jairus. That's what he said. He said, come lay your hands on her, she will live. And that's exactly what he did. Right?
Yep.
So that's the story of, Jairus had faith, but there was plenty of opportunity to doubt, to fear.
And get impatient.
And and to just, you know what, this stuff doesn't work.
And to give up from when he said, oh, your daughter's dead. And he's oh.
Yeah, to give up. And even when he went home, they're all crying and tearing up and tearing their clothes and stuff, playing sad music. That's another opportunity to fear, right?
Yeah.
But Yeshua had to take control of the situation, tell them all to beat it, right? So, here's another story. It's a story time. Here's another story. This comes from Mark 9:14 through 29. So, let's go through this one.
When they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and the teachers of the law arguing with them. As soon as all the people saw Yeshua, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. What are you arguing with them about? He asked.
Let's stop right there for a second. So, this is when Yeshua was coming down from the Mount of Transfiguration, and he was coming down, and what? He's seen his disciples and who?
Teachers of the law.
Or the Pharisees. Arguing with him. As soon as all the people saw Yeshua, they ran, overwhelmed, wondered, to greet him, right? So they were arguing with the teachers of the law. It was a law versus faith, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to see what happens when you mix the law and you mix faith at the same time. So let's pick up here at 17?
A man in the crowd answered, Teacher, I brought you my son, who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him into the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not.
Okay, let's look at that for a second. So, they seen Yeshua. He's seen him arguing with the Pharisees, his disciples, and he said, "What's going on here?" A man said, "I brought you my son. I brought my son to your disciples to cast out this impure spirit, right? This who is possessed by a spirit." Now, it was interesting to me that this man knew that the boy is possessed by a spirit. Nowadays, we would just call it mentally insane.
Yeah.
And give him a bunch of
pills.
That makes him worse. But his father knew that there was something wrong. The father knew that he was possessed by a spirit. Robbed him of his speech. The poor guy couldn't speak. He said whenever it sees him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashing his teeth, and becomes rigid. Sounds like he's having seizures. Asked your disciples to drive the spirit out, but they could not. So why do you think that they couldn't drive out the spirit?
Fear or lack.
There had to be some kind of fear there. There had to be some kind of doubt there. And why do you think they doubted?
Because the teachers of the law. Because the law, they were trying to mix
they're arguing with the teachers of the law. And I'm sure that they said, all you have to do is, go up and cast the devils out. But the teachers of the law is like, oh, well, that's not how it's done. Maybe you should. The law says you have to do this, and the law says you have to do that. But they said, no, well, Yeshua taught us this and that. And I said, well, the law says this, and the law says that. They're creating doubt. They're creating fear. Confusion. Right?
So they started lacking their authority that they had been taught.
Yeah. They were being influenced by the law, by the Pharisees, teachers of the law. They're being influenced. And that doubt was getting in there. Remember, Satan comes immediately. You couldn't even be leaders that pastors. You're just teaching the wrong thing. If pastors are teaching the law, it's not going to bring faith. We know that.
Yeah.
So if you're teaching the law, you need to start teaching the New Testament and start teaching faith. Because we're not under the law. We're not under the curse. We're under grace. We're under the Abrahamic covenant. Abrahamic covenant, there's no curse. Right? Let's pick up here at 19.
You unbelieving generation, Yeshua replied. How long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me. So they brought him. When the spirit saw Yeshua, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Yeshua asked the boy's father, how long has he been like this? From childhood, he said. It has often thrown him into the fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. If you can, Yeshua asked. Everything is possible for one who believes. Immediately, the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief.
Stop right there for a second. So there's a lot happening in these few verses, right? So when Yeshua came, you see him arguing with the Pharisees. The man brought his son who was possessed with the spirit, and he was gnashing his teeth and having seizures and convulsions and all that stuff. So what did Yeshua say? You what?
Unbelieving generation.
Unbelieving generation. Wasn't that one of the steps to doubt? That was like right in the middle, I believe. Steps to doubt. So the people were doubting. They had doubts. That's why they couldn't cast the spirit out, because they had doubt. And why do you think they had doubt? Because the boy was having seizures. They tried to cast the spirit out, and the spirit would convulse the boy and have seizures, and that would produce doubt. And plus the Pharisees were like, oh, yeah, just a bunch of, nonsense going on. What they should do is put the Pharisees out, right? Like Yeshua did. So he said, you unbelieving generation. How long should I stay with you? How long should I put up with you? Bring the boy to me. So they brought him. When the spirit saw Yeshua, it immediately threw the boy into convulsions. See, now Yeshua wasn't moved by the convulsions. He fell on the ground, rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Right? That'll make anybody doubt, right? Well, most people. Jesus answered the boy's father, how long has he been like this? From childhood. He often throws him to the fire and water to kill him. Now, what he told me here is that was a spirit of suicide. Spirit of suicide. Trying to kill the kid, or get the kid to... Well, I don't want to say get the kid to kill himself, but, get the kid to kill himself. Spirit of suicide. But if you can do anything... Now, what was this man's problem?
He had some doubt.
Now, did he have faith?
He had faith, but he didn't.
He had faith because he brought his son to Yeshua. So he obviously heard everything he's done, and he brought his child to Yeshua. But he didn't have the expectations that, Jairus had, or the woman with the issue of blood had, right? He said, but if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. He said, if you can, that's not a faith statement. If you can.
Doubt statement.
So he said, unbelieving generation. So he said, I believe, but help my unbelief. Right? So he believed, but he didn't trust. He believed that Yeshua can do something, but he didn't believe Yeshua can do anything. He didn't go and say, Yeshua, cast this spirit out, and lay your hands on my son and cast the spirit out and open his mouth so he can speak again. He didn't say that. He said, if you can do anything, just do something, do anything. All right? If you can, Yeshua said, if you can. What do you mean if you can? Everything is possible for ones who believe. Everything is possible for ones who believe, ones who have faith, ones who believe. Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. So he believed in the Father and his word, but it helped me overcome my unbelief. He didn't trust in the Father and his word. So he believed, but he didn't trust. When Yeshua saw the crowd running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. That's supposed to be you, huh? Pick up here at 25.
When Yeshua saw that a crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. You deaf and mute spirit, he said, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. The spirit shrieked, convulsed him violently and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, he's dead. But Yeshua took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. After Yeshua had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, why couldn't we drive it out? He replied, this kind can come out only by prayer.
Okay, so if you can do something, he believed, but he didn't have a whole lot of belief. He didn't have a whole lot of faith in the Father, but he had enough to come, right? So Yeshua rebuked the spirit. Where is that at? When Yeshua saw the crowd running, Yeshua commanded us. So right here, when Yeshua saw the crowd running, he rebuked the spirit. Now, just a little sidebar. When Yeshua rebuked the spirit, rebuke is not a word that you just use solo on your own when you're dealing with spirits.
So, like, I rebuke you in the name of Yeshua?
Yeah, I rebuke you. That's not a command. I rebuke you is rebuke means to command forcefully and to insult, talk about. So to rebuke, it says he rebuked the impure spirit by saying what? By saying, you deaf and mute spirit. He said, that's how you rebuke, is by saying, using your words. I command you, and by commanding. That's rebuking, is commanding. You deaf and mute spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. That was the rebuke. I command you to come out of him and never enter him again. So just saying, I rebuke you, is incomplete. You say, I command you, come out and never enter him again. Or I command you, sickness and disease, get off my body. You just rebuked sickness and disease. See what I'm saying?
No.
The spirit shrieked, convulsed and violently, came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, he's dead. But Yeshua took him by the hand, lifted him up to his feet. He stood up. After he had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, why couldn't we drive it out? He replied, this kind only comes out by prayer. Now, what is this whole chapter about?
Faith.
It's about faith and it's about unbelief. I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. Why couldn't the disciples cast out that spirit? Because it was their unbelief. So when Yeshua says, when they said, why couldn't we drive it out? He replied, this kind only comes out only by prayer. Now, is he talking about the spirit? No, he's talking about unbelief. And he said, well, that's not what it says. Well, and if you read the same account here in Matthew, that's what it says. Read this here, Matthew 17:19-20.
Then the disciples came to Yeshua in private and asked, why couldn't we drive it out? He replied, because you have so little faith. Truly I tell you, if you have the faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you.
So he was talking about their faith. They asked him, why can't we drive it out? Why can't we cast the spirit out? Because you have so little faith. Because you have so little faith. He didn't say because the demon is too strong and you have no authority over a strong demon. No. He said because you have so little faith. So this kind doesn't come out only by prayer. That's talking about the doubt, the unbelief. It doesn't come out only by prayer. Some translations will say prayer and fasting. So you have to pray and fast for demons to come out. So somebody comes to you that's demon possessed, you say, oh, let me go pray and fast for 3 days, come back. No. If you're full of faith, you cast that demon right out. Jesus didn't have to pray and fast for 3 days and then come back and cast out the demon.
And so I always wondered about that. I thought that's what that meant. You have to go fast and pray. Because somebody mentioned that and said, oh, even Jesus, you had a problem getting them out. So I said, well, when did he say he went and fast and prayed to get that devil out of that boy?
Yeah. You fasting and you're praying doubt. You're fasting and praying to get rid of doubt. And when you're fasting and praying, you should be filling yourself with faith. Faith-filled words. The faith that's inside those words is the power. And those spirits will respond to those words, to that power. Because you have authority over them, because you have the words of the Father. So
when people are trying to cast out, they don't have to be doing all the extras. They just do exactly what Yeshua did, because he spoke the Father's words, he had faith, and he had the authority. Right?
Yeah. I mean, getting into that type of stuff, there's more to it. But, this is just a basic, read of it. But there's more to it. There's strongholds, and there's if the demon has a right to be there. If the person doesn't want the deliverance, you can't cast it out. If the person doesn't want to be delivered. Yeah. So, there's just different situations. But in this situation, he's talking about doubt. Fear and doubt comes out by prayer and fasting. They couldn't cast it out because they had little faith. Didn't have enough faith. Right? So, Luke 17:5-6. Let's see what the apostles say here.
The apostles said to the Lord, increase our faith. He replied, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it will obey you. So
they asked Yeshua, increase our faith. How do you get more faith?
By studying, meditating, right?
By getting more word. Remember, faith is inside of the words. So when they ask Yeshua, increase our faith, he can't just magically make, your faith increase. Yeah. You can't open your head and pour faith inside of there. Increase our faith. So what did he do when they asked him to increase his faith?
He spoke to them.
He spoke to them to give them more faith. Right? So faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Father. Hearing about Yeshua and hearing the words of Yeshua. That's where faith comes. So if you need more faith, get more words. Get in the scripture. Get in your Bible. Right?
Exactly.
Hebrews 11:6.
And without faith, it is impossible to please Abba, or Yahweh, Elohim. Because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him.
So without faith, it's impossible to please the Father. So you can't even please the Father without faith. So if you don't have faith, if you're not studying faith, you don't know how to get faith, you can't please him. Why can't you please him? Because you can't do anything. You're powerless.
Yeah.
You can't heal anybody. And the Great Commission tells us to go out and heal the sick, raise the dead, and do what Yeshua's been doing. Continue his work. You can't do any of that if you don't have faith. Right?
Yep.
So you can't please the Father. You can't even do what he called you to do if you don't have faith. Because you're not gonna believe. You might believe in him and his word, but you don't trust. Mm-hmm. And if you don't trust, you're not going to act. You're going to sit idle, and devils are going to run rampant. Mm-hmm. Kind of like what's happening today. Yeah. Depending on when you're watching this video, but they're going to run rampant because the church is going to be sitting idle because they don't have that belief.
Yep.
Right. So we can read it here in another translation.
The Message version. It's impossible to please Yahweh apart from faith. And why? Because anyone who wants to approach Abba must believe both that he exists and that he cares enough to respond to those who seek him.
Yes, that's just another example of it. It's impossible to please him. So if your pastor's not teaching faith, it's going to be impossible for you to please the Father. Mm-hmm. So go find some faith teaching. That name it, claim it, blab it, grab it group. Search them out. Learn faith. And lastly here, not lastly.
You saw a whole page.
Okay, so Luke 6:45.
You skipped 2 Corinthians.
Oh, did I? 2 Corinthians 4:13.
It is written, I believe, therefore I have spoken. Since we have that same spirit of faith, we also believe and therefore speak.
So isn't that basically telling you how faith works?
Yeah. Believe
and speak. Believe and speak. Plain and simple. Believe and speak to Father's words. Mm-hmm. Now you can't just believe and speak anything.
Yeah.
Believe and speak to Father and his words. Luke 6:45.
A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart. And an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of.
So then we talk about in the beginning how all that stuff is stored in your heart, stored in your mind, your ear and your eye gates allow stuff into your heart. So you got to be careful what you hear, what you see, right? Because whatever's in your heart is what you're going to speak. And if it's doubt and it's negative and it's bad, you're going to speak it and you're going to get bad stuff and get whatever you speak.
Yeah.
So it's very important that you guard your heart. Be on guard. We read in the beginning, be on guard. Mm-hmm. Be on guard was to have faith or to trust the Father in his word and trust and believe in the Father in his word. Oh, I turned this off. Okay.
Yeah, that's just what you said right here in Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
Yeah, so that proves it. That backs it up. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay, we read these two because I was supposed to erase these, but I didn't. That's kind of getting off into something else.
Matthew 12:34. You brood of vipers, how can you, who are evil, say anything good? For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of.
All right, that's just saying the same thing.
And Mark 7:20-23. He went out. What comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within. For it is from within. Out of a person's heart that evil thoughts come. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person.
Okay, so does a pork chop defile you?
No.
Now, what a person intakes, what a person eats spiritually is what defiles them. What a person eats spiritually. Now, should you eat a certain way physically? Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. You have to take care of your body, but and be careful what you put into it. But more importantly, it's what you're letting in your eyes and your ears, and what you're feeding your spirit, man, your heart. Is what defiles you, and what comes out of your mouth is what defiles you, and what comes out of your mouth you're going to act on. So whether it's sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, and all these other evil things, right?
Yes.
So I believe that was it. I was supposed to get rid of these, but I didn't. But so that's faith. So I hope you learned something. Did you learn anything?
Yes, I felt the increase.
You felt the faith building up?
I felt the faith increase.
So don't just listen to this one time and say, okay, great, and think you know it. No, listen to it multiple times. Listen to it over and over until you can almost quote what we're saying here. Listen to it over and over. Take notes. Study.
Mm-hmm. Get
Meditate.
revelation from the Father yourself.
Get your own personal revelation. Let Him speak to you about the situation, the subject,
Mm-hmm.
and build on it and grow and share it with others. Right? So we hope this helped you, and thanks for watching. Any parting words?
Shalom, brothers and sisters.
Peace and love from up above.
See you next time.